Hi, I'm Dean from the Workshop Whisperer, and welcome to the A Grade Auto Repair Shop show, where you'll learn what successful seven-figure auto repair shop owners do differently for more profit and more freedom. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about standards versus sympathy and why A grade shop owners don't lower the bar when things get hard. So, if you're an auto repair shop owner, I want you to listen up because when things get hard in your workplace, do your standards go up or do they quietly come down? Because what we've seen from coaching thousands of auto repair shop owners for more than a decade is that the moment pressure hits inside their auto repair shop, there's staff shortages, the cash flow starts to tighten, or someone takes a day off, most auto repair shop owners lower the bar. They don't mean to, but they do. But A grade shop owners don't. They understand the difference between care and compromise, and that's why they win. And by the way, if you've never actually categorized your team as A, B, or C grade players, then you can download our free ABC player checklist in the description below. Don't do it yet. Come back to it at the end of today's episode. Here's a really important distinction for you. Lowering standards doesn't come from weakness. It comes from the fact that you care. You care about your team. You feel responsible for them. You don't want conflict. And ultimately, you're probably tired. You're overworked. You're overcommitted. And in some cases, you'll be overwhelmed by the number of things you feel you need to do on a daily basis. So at some point, you let something slide. And you tell yourself in the moment, it's just a one off. It's only temporary. But let me show you what actually happens. We call this the drift. See, the reality is when you started your auto repair business, you probably had really high standards. We'll call this axis your standards. This is a high standard. Down here, we've got a low standard. When you began, there's no doubt that you had high standards, clear expectations. You knew how you wanted things to run. But then pressure hits. You start to realize that the problems don't go away, they only get bigger. That managing your own time, managing your team, managing your customers, managing your bookings, managing your finances, managing your marketing, that it gets a bit hard and your standards start to slip. They just get lower and lower and lower. And here's the thing, that dot that you began with high standards, that dot starts to move down that axis. Because the reality is that standards don't collapse, they slide. You let one thing go, then another thing, then you might turn a blind eye to something else. And we get this creep or this drift in the standards that you had for yourself, for your team, and for your business when you started. But that's not all that happens here. Because if we come back to the horizontal axis, we have two approaches as an individual, as a leader, as the manager of your auto repair business. On one side, we have care. On the other side, we have compromise. If we look at this top left quadrant first, let's look at what happens in here. When you have high standards, and a high level of care for the quality of your team, capacity of your workshop, and the state of your cash flow, then you're running your auto repair shop with clear expectations. You're also consistently coaching your team. And what that means is you are actively working with them on improving the quality of their work and the consistency of their ability to meet the standards that you have inside your auto repair shop. And the other key ingredient that we see in an auto repair shop that has high standards and high quality of care from the owner is that you keep your team accountable to those standards. So as the owner, you have clear expectations on how the work is done and how the workshop runs. You are coaching your team members consistently for their skills, their knowledge, and their ability to meet those standards. And when they don't, because they're humans and they won't always do that, you keep them accountable to those standards, expecting them to make the behavioral changes or the skill adjustments that keep them meeting those standards for you. And ultimately, this style of leadership that sits in this quadrant up here, this, easier if I make this bigger for you. This is A grade leadership. It's the type of leadership that any auto repair shop owner that's going to have any chance of running not just a successful auto repair business, but one that generates the profit and the freedom for them to go and enjoy their life outside of the workshop needs to be aspiring to. But let's look at what happens in the other three quadrants here, where our standards change or the level of care that we show changes. If we look down here at the bottom right, in here, so in this case, we've got high care. So you still care about your team, care about the quality of work, care about the customer's experience they have when they come to you for their repairs, but you lower your standards. What does that generate? Well, in that case, you're probably going to experience a high level of overwork. Why will you be overworking? Well, number one, you're probably going to be rescuing your team when they get into trouble. You'll be trying to fix their problems for them. And in many cases, you'll be attempting to save them before they do any more damage than you wish to have to rectify. Ultimately, what this means is that you get into a state where you do everything you can to protect your team from underperforming. So you're double checking their work. You might be staying back late just to review what they've done. All decisions, all repairs, all questions have to come through you. You care about them. That's not in question. You care about the quality of the work, But that quality relies way too much on you checking all the work that they've done. And if you spend too much time in this quadrant, then what we can expect to see from a workshop owner who lives in that space over time is burnout. Perhaps you felt burnout. And perhaps part of this you recognize or feel within yourself right now. You care about your team, you care about your work, you care about your customers, but to the point that you feel you need to keep putting out all the fires, checking that everything's been tightened up, bolted on, filled up. You don't necessarily trust your team to do it. So you keep going around to make sure that everything is done. So high standards and care, we've got A-grade leadership, clear expectations, consistent coaching, keeping your team accountable. If we're moving into burnout, high levels of care, but the standards start to slip. So you're doing all the rescuing, the fixing, the saving. You're working way harder than your team is, and you're protecting them from their own underperformance. So you're beginning to tolerate a level of underachievement. But what happens if we move to the other side? What if in this space we start to compromise our standards? Let's look at what happens over there. So when you've got high standards, but you begin to compromise those standards, well, the truth here is, I'll get that iPad up for you, is that rules exist, but how well they're enforced becomes inconsistent. Let's call it inconsistent application. And what that means for your team is a level of confusion. What you'll notice as the owner, as the leader, is that some days they absolutely nail it. Like everything runs like clockwork, and you start thinking, wow, I just found the answer to all the questions I had. But then the very next day, similar work comes in. You've got the same team members, but their output is nowhere near what it was the day before. It's like you've just figured out the answers, then someone's asked you a whole different bunch of questions. And the issue here, when you live in this space, is that for you as the owner, you almost spend your life in a permanent state, not confusion, a permanent state of frustration. Because you keep scratching your head wondering why your team can work so well on a Monday and it's such a dog's breakfast on a Tuesday. We've got one more quadrant to go. Let's look down here. So this is the auto repair shop owner who has let their standards slip. Remember, it's not out of weakness. It's because you care, but they've let their standards slip and now they're starting to compromise, almost making deals with themselves on, well, it's not that bad, could be worse, and it's really hard to find good staff, so I'll just settle for who I've got and what they produce. So you start compromising on your own standards. And down in this space, this is really where we start to see a culture drop. And when we talk about what is culture, well, it's what you see, it's what you hear, it's what you feel. And as I talk about standards, the standard you accept is the standard you set. So when there's low standards, but a high level of compromise, meaning it is what it is, really, then this is where we see the first big culture drop. What we also start to notice is there is a high level of excuses. It's just the way it is. It's too hard to find good staff. They're good people. They do okay most of the time. Your excuses start to creep into the performance. But from a business perspective, we start to see, and you'll start to feel, that your margins erode. There is a definite, no matter how small, there is a definite and significant cost to the business in rework, in discounts. There's certainly an erosion in your customer satisfaction. So you may start to notice that customers aren't bringing their vehicles back for regular service and maintenance. What erodes most down here is trust. But in a business like this, that's being run this way, then what we're going to start to notice in this space is danger. And there's a few reasons for this. Because if we don't notice the drift, and we don't do all that we can to work towards reinstalling or reinforcing clear expectations through coaching and accountability of our team members, then we start to notice a ripple effect of the lowering standards, but the higher levels of compromise. And those three areas, quite simply, we start to get a danger to our, when I get the right thing here, to our A players. Right? So there is a danger, a risk that our A players will start to notice what the B and C players are being allowed to get away with. And instead of your A player teams maintaining their standards, they will drop their output to the lower standard, essentially going, well, why am I busting my backside here to produce better or to deliver better quality work when I can see Dave on the hoist next to me that's only working half as hard, but he's making the same amount that I am? So there's a level of self-preservation that kicks in at this point where each team member will do just enough to get by, but not enough to get themselves kicked out. But over time, your A players decide they want to go and work in a workplace that values their contribution, that values their commitment, and values their level of care inside the workshop. So your A players peel off. The other risk here is to your customers. If your customers aren't happy with the quality of work that you're doing, understanding that the three biggest reasons why any customer brings their vehicle to you for a repair, or their machinery, or they ask you to come and service or fix their machinery, whatever it is that your customer base um, comes to see you for, it's not for price because you're the cheapest. They're coming there for quality, reliability, and safety. Customers stick with you because of the quality of work you deliver for them over and over and over again. They come to you because of the reliability of the repair, right? Whatever was happening with their car, their motorbike, their caravan, their boat, their farming equipment, their mining machinery, whatever it is that you're working on, that it's working better when they get it back to you, when they get it back from you, than it was when they brought you the thing to fix. So quality, reliability, and thirdly, is safety. Customers stay with you because they believe the equipment they're using is safe because of the work that you do. Quality, reliability, safety. And with any one of those three, when a customer feels that any one of those three things has been eroded in some form, then it starts to break and bleed the trust that you've spent so long building with your customer base. And finally, the final thing that gets eroded is your profit. Well, if you've got to write off more hours or write off dollars because of low quality work, poor quality work, missed repairs, or rework, then that doesn't just cost you time, but it costs you money on that particular job and money on future jobs because customers go somewhere else. They don't go somewhere they can get the same work done cheaper. They go somewhere that's higher quality repair, higher quality work, more reliable repairs, and a higher sense of safety for them when they get their vehicle or their machine back from you. That's where you lose profit. When you allow low standards to creep in and you compromise on the standards you set and you had when you opened your workshop on day one. But if your A players disengage, if your customers feel and experience an inconsistency in the quality or reliability or safety of the repairs and the work that you do, then your profit will reflect the overall performance of your workshop. Because the key here to remember is that the process you run or the processes you run inside your auto repair shop, in addition to the performance of the team who you pay to follow that process, that's what equals the level and volume of profit that you will experience as the owner of your auto repair shop. Process plus performance equals profit. Let's dive a little deeper in here into what we call the standards ladder. The standards ladder. There's three standards that every auto repair shop owner sets inside their workshop, their business, whether they're aware of it or not. The first standard sits down here, and it's what we call better, than nothing. It's close to nothing, but there's some type of standard. It may be communicated. It's probably not communicated. Or at the very best, it's almost never highlighted or reinforced as the standard. But when an auto repair shop owner is operating from better than nothing standards, like the bottom of the standards ladder, then here's what we're usually going to be finding. They will be hiring out of desperation. They'll be finding anybody they can just to plug a hole inside their team, whether that individual is an A player, B player, C player, or worse, it doesn't matter. They just want a body. And time again, we've heard well-meaning and deeply caring auto repair shop owners who think the solution to all of their problems is just to hire another tech. The other part as well here is that because of the low standards because of the level of the standards they've allowed their team to get to and the number of excuses or compromises they make for that team, they're constantly having to rehire because any other team member who might be remotely close to an A player will actually peel off and go somewhere else. So they're always hiring out of desperation. As an owner, they'll constantly be in survival mode. Constantly in survival mode. Really hard to plan for the future. They're only ever making decisions on what's happening inside the workshop right now, that moment, that day, that week. No long-term planning, no long-term thinking, no long-term strategy. And if the owner's in survival mode, they're scared, they're in fight or flight, then the owner will overcompensate. I also realise this handwriting is horrible. Please excuse me, it's really difficult to write with a broken wrist, but we're all doing our best. So when you're on the lowest rung of the standards ladder, operating at better than nothing, then you're hiring out of desperation. You're constantly in survival mode. So it's fight, flight. And you as the owner are overcompensating for everyone else. We're really overcompensating to try and bring the overall standard of the workshop up to where you believe it should be, while quietly allowing everyone else on the team to underperform. It's exhausting, absolutely exhausting. Let's come up one more rung on the ladder here. So at this level, this is where you've got a team who meet minimum. Minimum. Had to work out how to spell there. And when you're in the middle, the problem will be that the business will hit a plateau. Broken wrist and my brain can't spell anymore. Your business hits a plateau. There's a steadiness inside the workshop. There's a stability across the team. It's never horrible, but it's not improving either. You might be hitting like your total monthly turnover might have sort of hit a ceiling, and it never gets too far below, 50K a month, 100K a month, 250K a month. But it doesn't ever seem to get above it consistently. Sure, you might have one really, really busy month, but it comes down to this set average. And no matter what you do, it tends to stay there. The other thing that you'll notice at this level as well is that through the team, there's still really no ownership. The team's not taking as much care towards the quality of work and volume of output that they deliver as you do. So emotionally and mentally, it feels like you're way more invested than anyone else on your team. And the fear here is that if you step away, that the standards will drop even further. So you never take any time off. And as I said before, at this level as well, when the business hit a plateau, there's no ownership. What you're also noticing is no or very low growth. There really is no next year. It's just another year of the same old stuff. So we don't see any of the team members, or you don't see any of the team members stepping up, wanting to take on more responsibility, wanting to be involved in more of the day-to-day running. You don't notice a growth in your monthly revenue. You might feel like the team's busier or there's more activity, but come to the end of the month, you don't see any more money left in your bank balances. There's not necessarily, like, you don't have the financial resources set aside to pay bills ahead of time. You're literally living week to week or waiting for the FPOS machine to settle at 5 p.m. every day so you know what you can pay. So there's like this, there's an imagined level of stability inside the business, but it's still sat on a knife edge, because if you have a bad week, a bad month, or a bad quarter, consistently low months, it could go a long way to knocking you out of business. So bottom, we got better than nothing, hiring out of desperation. You as the owner are constantly in survival mode, and you're overcompensating for everyone else's underperformance. One rung up, one level up on the standards ladder. Sure, the team, the business are meeting the minimum standards you've got, but there's a plateau. You're not seeing any consistent improvement. Team's still not taking anywhere near the level of ownership that perhaps they should, or that you would like. And you're either experiencing no growth or very low levels of growth, both when it comes to the team's skill set, the business's profitability, and there's probably really no or low growth in the amount of time that you're able to spend outside of your business and believe that you've left it in safe hands. But if we come to the top and we look at A grade standards, then we start to see things a little bit different. Because at A grade standards, ownership is a team game. Each role, each team member has a clear set of goals for what they are expected to, or to the level at which they're expected to perform and what they're expected to produce day in, day out. for the work and the jobs that they do. More importantly, there are a really clear, defined set of objectives, KPIs, benchmarks, that their role and their performance is measured against, so that they and you always know where the gaps are. So anyone can have a bad day, but they're having a bad week, a bad month, or more importantly, the standards are beginning to drop, you and they can correct that way faster than when we're just wishing, waiting, or hoping that they're doing the right thing. So ownership rests with the team members themselves. This also leads to the fact that when the team starts to own their performance, they actually start to demonstrate some initiative. Initiative towards what? Initiative to what they can do to become more efficient, more effective, and more productive in their role. It means that your team start to come up with some solutions to problems. At the end of the day, there's things that they see on the workshop floor that you do not or cannot see because you are looking in across all areas of the business, or you've got so much more things, so many other areas that you need to focus on, as opposed to just what they're working on at that time. So your team starts to drive some performance initiatives, some business improvement processes. And the other key part here, when your team starts to take ownership and demonstrates initiative, is that you start to protect the culture. Every auto repair shop has a culture. The difference is, and the difference you see is between the culture you want and the culture you have. And that's built on the expectations you set, the standards you tolerate, and the behaviors that you want to see from your team. When your team takes ownership, your team shows initiative, your team members, more of your team members move up to become A-grade players, A players, and they protect the culture of your workshop just as much as you do. Meaning, they don't want to work with any bad apples, or spend any more time with bad eggs than they have to. Not necessarily because your bad apples are bad people, but it's the virus they carry that can infect other people and bring the overall standard of your workshop down. But the other things we notice from A-grade leadership is this, is that your profit goes up, your stress as the owner comes down, but more importantly, the freedom that you feel as the workshop owner also goes up. Because you've now got a team that you can trust. You know the standards that they operate. They like you enough, they believe in you enough that there is room to make errors, but through the coaching and accountability that you have for them, they are more likely and more driven to self-correct, auto-correct their own skill deficits, their own oversights, coupled with the fact that there are clear processes, documented processes that show every team member how that job is done to meet the standard that you've set, that they can go and get the answers to their own problems when they need it. They're not waiting for you. They're not relying on you. You have built a belief in your team members that they have an authority to fix problems when they arise, not wait for you to have to come in and find them and then fix them. So as the owner, you've got more freedom, you've got less stress, and you've got greater profit. Well, your team's working more efficiently, they're working more productively, so you're not having to write off hours, you're billing the full amount of time that a job takes. There's almost no or very little rework, so you're not having to bill off lost time or write off lost hours. The money that your business makes goes up. It's quite amazing. It's how it works. And you as the owner start to have this trust, this faith in your team. That means everything's working for you. And here's the critical part. When you couple A-grade leadership with A-grade standards, you will protect that top rung as if your future depends on it, because it does. And this is the real kicker, the real key part of successful seven-figure auto repair shop owners is they will always protect the top rung of the standards ladder. And they are willing to experience and engage in short-term discomfort, moving underperformers on, having feedback forums with C-grade players, or being willing to run one tech down because they will not take on the risk of just bringing in a D-grade player just because they believe they need another tech in the shop. So they're always willing to run with short-term discomfort in order to experience, achieve, and enjoy long-term freedom. So what are the things for you to consider from today's episode? Well, first, it is this. If you think about the standards you've currently got in your auto repair business, ask yourself the question, whereabouts is your standard? Is it high standards and high care? Are your standards starting to slip? Or have they got so low that you really don't even know what your standards were to start with? So ask yourself the question, where are your standards right now? Have you slid down on your standards, or how far have you slid down? And even, from your standards, which side have you drifted to? Have you gone too far towards compromising the standards that you wanted? Or are you caring too much about the people and forsaking the standards that you're paying them to deliver for you day in, day out? You can ask yourself, what behaviors are you tolerating? Have you suddenly been okay with your team members coming in 10 minutes late, extending lunch by 5 minutes, having an extra smoko across the day, or simply being inefficient, unproductive during the day, but then asking to stay back and do overtime to complete that day's workload? And ask yourself, who is watching? If you're making excuses and lowering standards for your B and C grade players, are your A grade players watching that and going, well, why am I working so hard? And what is it costing you weekly through lost time, lost productivity, and lost profit? Because having high standards is the only thing that will protect your culture, your margins, and your freedom. And while lowering the bar for your lowest performing team member might feel kind towards them today, because sure, everyone's got stuff going on in their life. Just understand that lowering the bar today actually robs you of your freedom tomorrow. So, in closing, if this episode has you thinking about your auto repair business differently, And you can see how we help auto repair shop owners to stop tolerating what's holding them back, to help them build A grade teams and create more profit and more freedom inside their auto repair businesses. Then you can learn more simply by clicking on the descriptions in the link below. And you've got the ABC player checklist in there. There'll be no pressure, there's no sales calls, there's just some clear information in those links so you can decide if now is the right time and if this feels like the right fit for you to get some help with your auto repair shop owner, with your auto repair shop. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the A Grade Auto Repair Shop Show.